You've come to the right place if you're looking to create, launch, and scale a high-value online training program. I'm your guide, Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of LifterLMS, the most powerful learning management system for WordPress. Stay to the end. I've got something special for you. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMScast. My name's Chris Badgett and I'm joined by a special guest, Emma Goldie. She's over at emmagoldie.com. She's a meditation, mindset, and lifestyle mentor. I met Emma on the internet and then we got on a call and I was just enjoying interacting with you and your goal and wanting to help other people through your program. I was like, this is such a cool story. We should get this on LMScast. So welcome to the show. What is the Reset Your Mindset challenge that you're working on? And just tell us about that. Why is that what you do?
I've had a lot of experience in meditation. I actually started when I was 13 and I've been teaching intensively for 10 years. And I realized that most of the people, my clients, don't have time to meditate properly. And it does take a while to start getting really deep, profound results. I mean, you can get some easy tips that get good results, but what I found is the issues that people had that were blocking them in the mindset, like imprints and stories and habits and behaviors, which were protective mechanisms, were actually stopping them getting the meditation results. So I combined something called silent counseling, which is it's a non-invasive meridian therapy. It's a bit like Touch for Health kinesiology, to use the meridian points to help release the past imprints. Could be traumas or even thoughts or decisions that we made when we were young, that because we couldn't necessarily handle the emotions and in our mind during a complex situation. So it's a bit long-winded, but it's very simple, because what you do is you use points and breathing to reset the thought pattern, the imprint that you created, which was meant to protect you. Essentially, it just keeps running. So you're kind of looping around the same thought, the same issue, the same problem. And however much you try with your will or try with force to do something different, it keeps showing up because it's magnetized towards you energetically. Because it's in your electromagnetic system of the meridians. So yeah, it's really cool. It is really like magic, and I've had some amazing results. And I thought this is a really cool time. There's so many people who are looking more inward and needing to find a state of peace, and there's a lot of pressures, and yeah, it's just a really cool offer. It's great. So it's a 5-day experience, 10 minutes of meditation and kind of reset techniques. The meditations are like a couple of minutes at the end, but some people do really get into them and are using them every day. But the 10 minutes is enough, and people are having really great results. So there's a Facebook group, and yeah, feel free to come join, and that's on the website emmagoldie.com. But I was super excited, Chris, to work with you, and every time we've had a chat, it's kind of been like a really open chat. We've ended up actually not talking about the course builder at all. And
Yeah.
I was so excited because I heard that you went to the Himalayas and you've gone to Alaska, and I just wanted to find out a bit more about that from you as well, because I also went to the Himalayas when I was like 19, which was a crazy experience in Tibet and India, and it had a really profound impact on me that stayed with me. So I wanted to find out how that was for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I was just a little bit older. I think I was 20 or 21 when I went there. I went with something called the School for International Training. And it was like a small group, very much about living with families and stuff, and just being out and doing independent study projects and whatnot. I was always drawn to the mountains, and I was always drawn to the the Eastern religion, and specifically the Buddhist way of doing things or seeing the world. You know, even older stories like Siddhartha, or getting into some of the Buddhist principles were really helped me in my just figuring out how to be in the world. So I'm kind of an extremist. So I love mountains. I went to the tallest ones in the world. I love
Wow.
dogs. I ran sled dogs in Alaska, where you can't get more into dogs. And
Wow.
I was really getting into Eastern religion. So I went and I love just the whole Tibetan Buddhist culture and everything, and also a lot about Hinduism and whatnot that I just wanted to explore. So I'm kind of an explorer, and that's what I did
You
in
went
my
into the
20s.
kind of mysticism side as well.
Yeah, totally.
So, do you think? I mean, you are a really chill guy, and
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how you managed to like create such a good business whilst and have that balance. I mean, that's something I've found really hard because I guess in my practice, I've been doing it a long time. I was in Tibet as well, like 19, went on loads of pilgrimages and was living out kind of in abandoned temples with sadhus and both in India and Tibet. And I did find it really hard, like at that age, to come back and integrate back into the world. But now, obviously, I've got the balance, and it took me quite a while to do that. But I've been doing intensive retreats for like 10 years, so a lot of my work is to help people integrate those values, and often it's just key principles and values. But it is also about the navigation of how you do everyday life, because obviously, if we're getting up and meditating all day long, we're sitting in a cave, we can't
Yeah.
contribute to society. And that's what I found amazing about you, because you are just so zen and it really comes across. And I was like, this guy just doesn't kind of feel like a course creator type of guy. But do you find that when people like come to you, you're ending up doing kind of more mindset work and stuff with them?
Yeah, and first let me just say I'm definitely not perfect and I have a lot of room for improvement. And I don't know what I am the same. If we met in person, I would probably come off the same. I'm actually kind of an extreme introvert. So some people think because
Right.
I make all these videos and stuff that I'm very outgoing, which I'm the opposite. But and there's a lot of areas where I do get stressed or whatever. But I've done a lot of work on myself over the years. I think dog training is actually an easier example,
Okay.
in the sense that, I've trained a lot of sled dogs and I love working with dogs. And working with dogs, I mean, a lot of people don't have like really deep experience training dogs, but they're familiar with this TV show called The Dog Whisperer. And the guy who does that, Caesar Milan, is always talking about it's not the dog, it's the people that have the issues. So like what you're talking about,
For
no,
sure.
it's not the course, it's not the LMS software. We've
Mm.
got imposter syndrome. We've got somebody who has an expert who's like internalized all this stuff and they forgot about beginner's mind and they're having a hard time. They have all this value trapped inside of them, but they were never trained in how to teach or whatever.
Yeah.
There's like
They've
that
got to come
blockage.
out of their mind.
They're lonely because they're misunderstood in their maybe in their immediate network. I call them education entrepreneurs. They're all over the place, but they're very spread out and they're often surrounded by people that don't get them.
Or
They're
don't
super.
believe in them.
Yeah, yeah, especially in the early days before there's it's a startup and there's not a lot to show for it in terms of money or all this huge following or whatever.
Before the momentum comes, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean the word entrepreneur comes from to undertake, and what entrepreneurs do is they go into the future and they bring it back to the present and they make it happen, and that's a very rare thing. It's a rare skill, and I've heard in some studies that it's like 5% of the population or something
Right.
that are kind of wired that way, and it's one of those things where it's really uncomfortable, especially in the early days, and it's kind of misunderstood. But I mean, I still get stressed out and stuff. I've just been a work in progress and been open to, okay, you're being a workaholic. You need to take care of your body better. You need to, it's not just about making money. There's all this other balance you need around all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I've been into personal development longer than I've been into entrepreneurship. And I think that's what kind of carries me through.
Yeah, and that's probably what people get from you a lot, the way they're drawn to you and want to work with you because they get that personal touch. Because it's like when we're drawn to want to create something, it's like an entrepreneur's itch where you want to jump and you want to jump and then you want to the next thing, onto the next thing. And it's like, as entrepreneurs, we have to figure out what our polarity is, which is what my polarity navigation is about. It's finding out what attracts us and pulls us and what pushes us away. And we can also have the feminine and the masculine side. So for me, getting into Superflow is being able to have a really clear intention that's really fixed and taking aligned action. But in the space in between, that's the kind of feminine space where you have to trust, let go, show the universe what you're doing, you know, by the continued aligned action. Then it goes, oh, okay, I understand this, and then it starts sending you people. But it's that space in between, setting the intention and having taken the aligned action, and not feeling like you're the one that has to do it all the time. Because when you hand it over, and when you're in the flow, it's like there's nothing better than, you know, when you're getting the calls in, or actually putting your feet up and taking a rest back. It's a really hard thing to do, and I think self-care is quite a big element of what I help people with, because it's really key to be able to open that gap of the ego. Basically, the ego is meant to keep us safe, you know. It will keep us safe. If we're getting too high and above ourselves, it will bring us down. If we're getting too low, it will bring us up. But it's like that parameter is so narrow that it doesn't let us expand and develop. And as entrepreneurs, we've got to do that. So we step outside, and then of course we get all the pushback from everyone else around us, whether it's our family or community or people not getting us or just thinking we're crazy. And it's such it is the entrepreneur is like a beast of its own, you know. And learning how to navigate also the inner and outer worlds, because we have our intentions, we have our thoughts and feelings, we have our vision. How do we make that manifest when the environment outside us just isn't conducive? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm super fascinated in this, and I mean, tell us more about Superflow and that interplay between the masculine and feminine energy. Because I see a lot of burnt out entrepreneurs, not just in education, but in tech and all kinds of other businesses, where to me, it seems like it's that masculine energy where it's just like
Go, go, go,
go,
go, go.
go, go, go to the point of burnout or really unhealthy habits.
Mm. Yeah, it's an interesting one because it actually comes from the creative principle, which is quite a mystical philosophy. It comes from the where creation happened initially. You've got the masculine and the feminine, so they split away from each other. You've got the law of repulsion, and in that space is where the three gunas come in, the five elements. And it's within that space that creation happens. So you have involution, which is a thought, which then is coated in matter, and then it pauses, and then evolution happens. It outbursts when it's ready. So if people are trying to create something and evolve it and outbirth it at the wrong time, it's just not going to happen. So as the entrepreneur, you want to keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. But that pause space is really, really important to allow the process of the creation to have its own natural flow. And it's almost like creating the conditions within that space that best serve you as a person to be able to be inspired, to get the job done, to be, you know, surrounded by the people who are going to help you, to be in a state of positive magnetism. Because if we're trying all the time, trying and trying and trying and doing and doing and doing, we're kind of actually pushing what we're wanting away. It's like desperately wanting something rather than being it. So it becomes a process of, you know, I am money, or I am creation, or I am the action, rather than I want it. Because if you're wanting, you're striving and striving and striving, and it's constant. So by stepping back and observing, you get into a space of being, which essentially creates all the conditions that are correct and right for those things to magnetize and outbirth. It's a bit like planting a seed and expecting it to grow before it's ready, or putting too much water on, or giving it too much sunlight, or giving it, you know, the wrong conditions. At the end of the day, it's going to evolve and grow into what it's going to evolve and grow into. And all we can do is create the conditions for that, take the aligned actions. And I mean, it's a little bit simplified, planting a seed, but you get what I mean.
Can you speak to
That's
the imposter syndrome part of it, where and I think what's also around that is just being authentic or whatever, or maybe you have to show more of your true self, to really step into what you're going to do if you want to be a successful teacher or some kind
Yeah,
of
I mean, you have to
healer.
start living it. And
Yeah.
that means we've all got imposter syndrome. And a lot of people listen to it, unfortunately, and can't get over it. But the reset of your mindset element is when you were younger and something happened, I don't know, your brother stole your toy and it got lost and it was your best thing ever, and you believe that, anything special is always going to get taken from you, for instance. It's a really sort of, it might be a really small incident, it doesn't have to be a massive trauma, but that's a decision that you make. And ultimately, everything magnetizes around you in that same way. So the imposter syndrome, I know it pertains to everybody, but it can also have certain edges which relate to things that happened when we were younger that make us feel like we're not worth it, or we don't deserve it, or we can never keep it anyway. And by checking in, I use a system which helps to buy the biofeedback of the body. So you can actually check in what age something happened. Sometimes you need to know what it is, and sometimes you don't. But generally, you need to name what it is. But the fact that it's called silent counselling means that you don't have to sit and talk about it over and over and over and over again. I mean, the mind is already playing it over and over and over again anyway. So you just realise what it is, press certain points on the meridian points, and do a breath, and that literally releases it like that. So what I'm finding with my clients is, as we release things, they can propel so much quicker in their business results, money stories, or with imposter syndrome, or with feeling of unworthiness, or even, navigating their outside world. Like, often we project onto someone outside ourselves, oh, my husband's really against me, he doesn't want me to do this, or my sister keeps putting me down. But they're just kind of reflecting what's going on inside. It's a lot easier to blame it on someone outside, but when we do the internal work, things open and lift, because maybe we had a connection with our sister and that then releases, or we have to live into the experience of being that for it to happen. So when you're creating the future, you can experience it through visualization, go through the sensations of it, through the thinking, the feeling, what am I going to be doing? The visualization is really powerful. And also start living some things. I mean, obviously, if you want to be a millionaire and you're not, you can't go out and do everything like a millionaire, but you can imagine those things and start feeling into how that is. So you can start being that person. How would you talk to people differently? How would you, it can be really small things. What would you be eating for breakfast, or would you be lying in? It's like now I used to have a really strong meditation practice, which was like 2 a.m, 4 or 5 hours a day.
Wow.
Really, really powerful. And I hit burnout, not from that, but from, pushing. It was at the beginning of COVID, and I was just pushing so much, trying to develop things for online and figuring out what to do, and not knowing which thing to have first. And then you find out you need this, but then you need the funnel, then you need all these other packages, and everything I seemed to do, one step would lead to another 10. And I was like, oh, next week I can launch. And I realized there was so much in the background, and part of that was partly to do with me as well. I was just pushing myself too hard. So now my schedule is really different, and I as well as doing quite a lot of work in with America, then, which means I'm to bed later. But I don't put my alarm on. I get up, I run a bath, I take a massive bowl of fruit, and I might be in the bath for an hour listening to trainings or podcasts, or just floating, meditating. Then I'll get up, maybe start working around 10 or 11. And like 6 months ago, I just would never have done that. And even in my meditation, rather than meditating, I still meditate in the afternoon, but I might dance in the morning, put some music on and dance, or go for a walk, or just mix it up a bit and do something different, because we get into we have to sit in a box, we sit at our desk, we have to work in this way. This morning I had a 3-hour bath, and I had my computer, I had my phone, I was journaling, listening. In fact, I listened to your walk, your happy birthday walk.
Oh, my Facebook Live. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it made me laugh, because I always forget how old I am. And I do remember my birthday, but I'm just like, oh, that's really cool. That's just so zen, That was such a great post, actually. I really, yeah, really enjoyed it.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Mm.
So like that's one of my hacks a little bit is like self-care kind of
Mm.
things. Like my morning walks is part of my mental health and I'm a huge
Definitely.
environment guy. So like getting out into nature in the morning, I've just learned that if I start my day, like you're talking about the bath in the morning, the dancing in the morning, the
Mm.
music, whatever, um, that works for me is to do like self-care early and then I get into my day and I'm much more grounded. Like I think a lot of people wake up. I shouldn't say I think, I know a lot of people wake up and then the phone and then the email and then there's like this cascade where there's just no self-care, very little. Like how does somebody break the cycle?
Yeah, it's almost like a panic, I think, because we're all on fight or flight so much. If you're doing well on the as an entrepreneur, you're kind of waiting for something to go wrong, and because we're always pushing boundaries, we're always changing things. Things are always going to be evolving, and actually, when we're comfortable, we need to jump for something else.
Right.
But there has to be that space that we give to be able to expand. It's again, it comes back to the yogic principle of expansion and contraction. There's a natural breath, and I love expanding. I'm just that type of person. But so for me to sit and meditate, I mean, obviously, I was really had to focus hard to do it, but it was really, really hard because literally every single cell in my body was like screaming, just get up, just move. And I just wanted to do something. But when we realize there's a natural flow and expansion and contraction to an idea or to a task or to a relationship or to a conversation, it's like we can let go of that um, need to always be expanding, or for some people it's the opposite. For some people they're really, really contracting all the time. They're much more detail focused orientated. They just get so inside their heads or inside themselves and they can't actually look up and just take a breath. So the the superflow state for me is kind of being in expansion as much as you can, but also when you're in the contraction, it's you're in a comfortable and almost luxurious space where you're pausing, so you allow the pause, and then it just kind of merges into a more unified state, I guess. I
Very
mean,
cool.
for me, it's about finding a more unified and permanent state where you can be at peace, in the zone, in the zen, whatever you want to call it. And when we start to have things working for us, if we're doing a project, it's allowing that rest and that, yes, this is good. I can switch off, I can turn off, I can leave for 2 days and just forget my phone, forget my partner, forget everyone, but just grow and expand into nothingness. And it's the expansive state, I guess, and the self-care element is really, really key for that. And it feels like, I mean, when I come in and I put my feet up at 11 o'clock and I'm having a bowl of fruit, and like my partner or someone in the house is like, "Oh, you're all right there." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good, thanks." But it's like it's kind of judged from the outside.
Yeah.
I do a lot of creation and writing, and the inspiration comes when you're in an expanded state. And if we're constantly trying to do and fix and manipulate, maybe there's something bigger than us that's going to have a hand in how all these things that we're calling in, all of our intention, are going to land up for us, in a better way than we could have organized ourselves. So
Wow.
that part is also about letting go and trusting a bit, and the flow is really within the work is to find out which there's 9 parts for the polarity, and it's to find out kind of which parts. There's polarity: creation, time and space, structure, self-care, mission, environment, and vision. Yeah. And within each of those there's another 3 principles. So we basically, what we do is I would test you and say, right, we want to work on your mission and your space, and then within there we nail it down to 2 more things, and we figure out in your world or in your environment, or in your organization of your time or structure, what's not working. But it's very much related to what's going on inside. So once we nail what those things are, clear the energy behind it, then it kind of creates a whole new path. So what's happening is people who are clearing these elements are suddenly having massive changes in their life because they just realize, hang on, this doesn't fit me, or it doesn't actually fit for me to be always having the same conversation and saying yes, 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 or I'll do it for you, or I'll take care of you, or whatever their habitual persona is. But that change is really difficult. It means us looking at ourselves. It means everyone else around us being challenged, because not only are we're kind of wanting to lift our ego limits bigger, it then challenges theirs, because suddenly we're not maybe doing everything we were doing for them before, or we're marching to a different tune and they're, I don't know, jealous or inspired or whatever it is, but they can't figure it out, and that puts them into fear. So a lot of it is constantly coming out of this fight or flight or fear, which, as animals, or coming from the animal world, we have. So it's learning to manage with simple breathing techniques to release those, and then, seeing what's present for the day.
Wow. How does these stories and trauma get trapped in the body? And I just want to say something I observe in the education entrepreneurs is often there's like two archetypes. One's like really focused on making money, and the other one is really focused on the impact or changing the world or healing this group of people. Um, but there's like this healthy balance if you can master both. So I know that's kind of two questions in one, but I think
We'll
they're
take
probably
second
related.
first. To be honest, that's something I'm still mastering, because
Yeah.
I had a superfood business which was
Yeah.
really successful, and it brought in like over 100K a year, and I was able to just literally spend my time doing meditation all the time. I was working. We have a home soup kitchen, so I was sorting them out, and we've got a retreat center, so I was just working, volunteering all the time,
Yeah.
teaching, and that was what I did over the last 10 years. And that was one of my stories from early on. When money came to me, it was always through loss, through family loss. So I kind of have a big thing of guilt and shame, around money, and that was that one thing that I have been dealing with, which everyone has their own stories, and the way they get locked in is you've got an electromagnetic system inside the body. Do you know the meridian system?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So it's a bit like, say you have an injury, you pull one of your ankle muscles. Um, Another one of the muscles then comes in stronger to help protect the other one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you release that strong one, this one can't strengthen up again. Does that make sense? It's like a pair.
Okay.
A positive and negative balance within a joint. Yeah. And it's the same. It will, if you have a shock, then the meridian system will kind of protect, because the emotion and the mind can't correlate those two things together. Yeah, so one part will overcompensate by becoming strong, and that leaves the weakness in another area of the flow of the meridian system. So basically, it's like a roadblock. So when you press the meridian points and do the breath in a certain way, it just helps to redirect the energy the right way through the meridian system. I mean, often when you're doing it, you might be thinking of that thought or feeling, or you might be breathing in something positive to replace it. Yeah, so normally you breathe in something positive to replace it, and then release with the breath what the negative thing was. Sometimes people need to remember what it was, sometimes they don't. I mean, sometimes it can even be like ancestral, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
because often down through our lineages, often our mom or dad or grandparents, it can be through illness, like way back. If there was a limiting scenario, if there was an illness, say polio, that would have created a limiting set of circumstances for the mindset of that family, and it would have been really deep rooted. So it doesn't have to be something that happened when we were young, it can be from before. Or it can be environmental as well, like an environmental impact on us too. And yeah, so you literally just help the meridians to reset with the breath, and then they flow right. And then the next step would be to help that person to navigate, because obviously they've been thinking and feeling that way for such a long time.
Yeah.
First, you would put in a positive affirmation, give them that same exercise to do a little bit so that they can rebalance up. But actually the steps that my clients are taking are amazing and really quick. I've just been blown away. Like people changing jobs really quickly, or things happening in their life with their partners just turning around like 180 degrees, because suddenly they just don't see it or feel that loaded pushback, all the time, because they're not coming in with that victim mentality, or that, whatever the story is, or the anger. Often the anger isn't anything to do with what the partner has done or what the colleague has done, it's something else. So it's like, by releasing that initial thing, suddenly, wow, there's a lot more space, there's a lot more energy, there's space for inspiration to come in. Because if our body's in that fight or flight, that we can't create, we can't inspire. And that's why it's also really important to have the self-care element, for the entrepreneur who just doesn't stop. If we're in fight or flight all the time, we're going to just hit the ceiling of what we can create, how the inspiration comes, what we attract to ourselves. There's only so much kind of force and willpower that we can use. If we get the universe on our side, or our energy on our side, and our field working well, and our thoughts creating in the correct way, then it's just like back to that creation thing. It will just have the natural flow, it will have the natural cycles. And that's also what we go into, the natural cycle of creation. And then also there's really other practical things like people's mission, 9-step of the mission, getting the message, getting the mission dialed in of the customer. This is probably what you help people with, because it's when you're entrepreneurs, they kind of want to sell what they want to sell. This is how I am, this is what happened to
Right.
me, I want someone to buy that. But that's not necessarily what the buyer wants or what the client wants. So it's finding out what their mission is.
And
And
I want to dig
then,
into that, like the Dharma or the mission, or like somebody's like, they're feeling inspired, but there's no North Star, or they're making it about them. And like, I'm just going to sell
yeah.
myself online or whatever. But like, how does somebody really get the download of the mission and that clarity of purpose? And
Well, I think as entrepreneurs or creators, I think for a long time I was trying to get my mission out there and not listening to what my okay, so my clients might be able to relate to a bit of my story. I went off to India when I was 19. I had a crazy sick mum. Before that, she then died. I had a really intense experience in India and Asia, and I didn't really find myself at home for a long time because I didn't really fit in society. I didn't really have a family. I was kind of always wanting to expand, so didn't really settle with many things. I've got a family and stuff, but I was constantly moving in different ways. And to when we have to dial in our own mission, it's a different thing. I feel that comes as a luxury later, once we have the momentum of the business, because if you're wanting to set a business and you've got the mission of the client at the top, and then you've got the messaging, which is really, really consistent, dialed in, then you build the methodology, then you get the movement, then you get the money, then you get the momentum, and that's when the meaning comes. It's like that's kind of when you've got the luxury of having your own meaning in there, because that whole flow is there for the client and they feel it, and that's when it becomes a seamless kind of scalable offer. And then from there it goes backwards for yourself, so then you get the luxury of your own meaning.
yeah.
And it works like bottom up, if that makes sense, back to the mission. So I feel by dialing in, almost by removing ourselves, becoming the observer. Like I've got so much I want to teach to people, and I actually had to put on the side a lot of my spiritual and philosophical teachings, because actually that's not what people want to know. They want productivity, they want to know how they can get more money, work better, be more peaceful, not go home and scream at the wife, or you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
like really practical things. So I've had to put, even though it underpins my system, that's not what I'm teaching. I'm teaching what people need and what their mission is, that they can get dialed in. They can have life-changing results really quickly and in an integratable and navigatable way. Because I think a lot of people also, when you talk about self-transformation or personal development, they're scared. Well, what's it going to be like? Am I going to be a different person? Am I going to change? Am I going to still, love my husband? Am I going to still fit into my family? Am I going to want to leave everything and fly off to Bali? Or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of, there's a fear because it's unknown, but actually it's a much smoother integration of just releasing off the things that are holding us back and us expanding into more open space around us without these, mind blocks or habits or imprints. It's almost like reprogramming the matrix, I guess.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean of course you can change everything if you want, but more often than not it doesn't mean that, because people end up taking more responsibility. They realize what their part is in that negative situation, and wow, it gives a lot of freedom.
What's your take on you talked about like sort of like the universe like kind of tapping in and then it can help you out and you visualize, like in terms of, I don't know what the right words are for it, but the way you vibe and then the type of people, whether that's team members or clients that you attract, how does that interplay work when you're when you have a good reset with others? Like what the whole polarity thing with other people, how does it work?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at environment, your environment can make a big impact on you, and obviously people's thoughts around you, especially if you're sensitive. When you're sensitive, you pick up people's thoughts and feelings, and I think that was one of my early problems. I was so sensitive, I would always know what someone else was feeling, so then I would act accordingly because I didn't want them to be sad or upset or angry, and then I actually just morphed into what I thought people wanted me to be, and that was a lot of my kind of awakening. But if you're talking about the standard, I don't know, say Asian wife who is living a life that she's meant to live, or any of us, we end up thinking that we should be this person. Yeah, obviously that's a stereotypical thing. But, suddenly there's like a feeling of something's not right here. I'm not aligned to my truth. I'm not connecting. So, and you feel like there's something wrong with you. And actually, everyone else ends up thinking there's something wrong with you as well, because they think, oh, she's going mad because suddenly she's not running around bringing me tea and or whatever it is all day long.
Yeah.
Because it's like an evolution process, and as we make those changes in ourselves, I think it's important. That's a really important time to have people around you who understand, like whether it's joining a community of people who understand changing. It doesn't have to be, this level of change happens for everybody in some way or another. And it's, some people call it, like for an extreme, it's kind of like the dark night of the soul,
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably what leads a lot of people to suicide or, really intense depression, is like a deep feeling of shame, often, that you're kind of not who you should be. And that's kind of projected on, from the outside. But it's also, we've had our interplay because we've been playing that game for so long. But I think it's one of the hardest things is to navigate serving yourself after you've served others for so long. I think that's one of the most difficult things I've done. I've done it a few times and it's really profound. It's kind of, because you do just get a lot of pushback, as much as people love you and want the best for you, if they're bought into you being a certain way because it's convenient. It's like resetting the habits. You kind of got to reset the habits around you as well. And I guess you'll find, as you kind of upgrade your vibe, you will find some people get jealous, some people can't handle it because they see, basically they would need to change as well because you've opened your scope of being, and for them to be in and around you, they would have to change to an extent. And it doesn't mean you have to leave everyone in your life. I see a lot of this kind of spiritual bypassing thing where, leave anything that's negative in your life. And actually, most often, whatever's happening on the outside is a reflection of inside. And I've had some amazing results with myself and with my clients to actually navigate those types of situations where, we feel like we've got to drop everything or leave everything. And of course, we have to be true to ourselves. And if someone's not aligned, then they're not aligned. But I think often people, if they're going through this type of situation, they kind of get in a gridlock, and maybe they just drop it or walk away too soon because they don't have the tools to be able to navigate their change and the other person's expectation. So it's complicated, it's complex, but it's really doable, but it's difficult on your own, especially, what I would say is, find a group. There's loads of Facebook groups for loads of different stuff. Of course, you can come and join mine as well. Let's reset your mindset. But you need support around you with people who've done that before. Otherwise, you think you're going mad. You think there's something wrong with you and there's not. And actually, it's an insult to the soul to not listen, when there's a calling. And when you don't listen, it can end up with you, in really detrimental situations, with people getting sick, or, relationships breaking up, or, broken families, and, or even worse, if people, self-harm or go to addictions and all that stuff. It's like the expectation from the outside creates a deep shame when we can't live up to what we feel we should be. Shame is probably the most complex and difficult of emotions, I would say. It's the one that leads people to really drastic measures. And I feel like it's sad because, it's interesting even now, because I'm doing lots of posts and I'm putting in about different openings and reset your mindset and everything. And I mean, I don't specifically deal with trauma, but essentially everything I do is about someone having had a trauma and making a decision. But even the word trauma, someone doesn't like really either. If they've had a trauma, they don't want to acknowledge it. And if they haven't had a big trauma, they certainly don't want to acknowledge it. So even the sort of language around, I guess, mental health and us managing our feelings, and probably especially for guys, I think, I don't know how you find, I was just wondering for you, do you find guys kind of get attracted to you and talk to you more about those things because you're an open kind of guy? I mean, you're the kind of guy that probably should be around a bit more for most people.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to attract people who want to not just have small talk, but like really get into it, and just be open-minded and even vulnerable, I guess, for a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I
That's
think
a
that,
really special trait.
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. And it's that, I mean, I'm really conscious of the masculine and the feminine energy, and having that not be about just man or woman thing, but just that interplay or whatever. And I always enjoy meeting people who can embody both and they're comfortable with both,
Mm-hmm.
and it just feels more balanced and whole picture, and the one side's not repressed or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
I think with the balance of the two, like often the masculine doing side is because we're trying to overcome a feeling that we don't want to feel inside.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And often even the feminine kind of floaty out there thing is because we're scared to take action. So some of those we've just got to do the work on ourselves, I guess, to get it in balance and to get it working well. And it's really beautiful when it flows well. It's really nice, and
Well, that's the
it's
Superflow you're talking about, right?
yeah, exactly.
um,
And it's, people call it Superflow, and it is a feminine thing, but actually it's held within the two masculine. You've got the aligned, the thought, the intention, and the aligned action. So it's kind of like a polarity sandwich, I call it. So because you've got the masculine on both sides, and then you've got the feminine that's got the space. As a creative, as a woman, with that creative energy, you need that space to create, and that's where the self-care element and being in nature and finding like what are the non-negotiables. For you, obviously that's your walking, you're
yeah.
shooting off to the mountains, but people just so desperately need that, and need to be okay with allowing themselves to take that. And I had a couple of meetings booked this morning, and I just needed to just be in the bath for 3 hours. And it wasn't, it's nothing I couldn't reorganize. It was just some team stuff. But part of me felt, oh, can I postpone it? It's just like, this is just what you need. Just listen, just listen and do it. And I was like, okay, cool. I've got to practice what I'm preaching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And on that note of the space, um, do you have any just tips about? I notice people who, I would say, education entrepreneurs, they consciously cultivate their workspace or whatever, or they have to. It's hard enough, like you said, a lot of roads lead to 10 more roads and stuff like this. The space in which you go on this adventure, particularly in this case in an online context where you got to build a business, you got to teach, you got to build community, you got to use all this technology and everything. What advice do you have around cultivating a space to work in that's like more the physical part of it to nurture that super flow?
Definitely. I mean, I guess part of it's to do with timetable, like having some time where there's not like really fixed tasks, because you can't find Superflow if you're boxed in on tasks. Yeah, you might have a diary where you need to do 5 things in the week, but sitting down and deciding I've got to finish this on a Monday. If the inspiration is ready to drop about something else and you're kind of tied up in the box and frustrated with the tech and God, I got to get 5 Facebook ads done or whatever it is, it's like you're not being open. So I would say creating the physical space so that you feel that you can expand. So, making it look nice, being somewhere near nature or somewhere you can walk, having nice things around you, and so that, almost creating a luxury workspace, I guess, where you can create your zone, create your zen, and honoring that part of you. I mean, how many hours do you spend on the computer working? You need to honor that part of you and kind of knowing what your natural flow rhythm is. I'm like, if I've got kind of like 15 minutes where I can do really intense things, and then it's good for me to shift. So everybody will have a different time set within themselves, like a body clock thing, where they will have that amount of time, and then it's good to just make sure you have a break in between that, because after that you're not going to be as effective. Having good breaks, ideally being with people who are like-minded. I mean, we didn't finish talking about the kind of magnetism of people and how they come in, but generally as you upgrade yourself, you will get attracted to the right people. And you have to, I suppose, look for damage limitation if you're changing a lot, and knowing that things might change around you, and be, I guess, quite task oriented if you're kind of managing the measures of the team and how they're meant to look or what they're meant to do. And if something's not fitting, just start having those conversations and seeing if you can reinvent that, or if it's going to work, or maybe it's just not going to work. You know what I mean? But I think being open about it, when you start to have an open conversation, you'll find if someone's open and reflective and going, that I feel a lot better after that conversation, it really makes sense. And yeah, I need to take more time for myself, or I need to look at what I'm bringing to the table. There has to be that conversation in the first instance. And some people just might think you're a bit crazy. I live in an environment where a lot of people kind of know what I'm like.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're living in a really normal work environment, that can be really hard. But then you might want to say, okay, well, are you doing a couple of days work from home, or are you cutting your days down, or your hours, or are you going in early before the team comes in, so you can turn up at 7 in the morning and get 2-3 hours done before anyone comes in. You're kind of already way ahead. Have a long break. It's like hearing what the soul needs, I guess, and for that you just need to create some silence somewhere. You can't get inspiration if you're not silent.
I love that. Emma Goldie, your Facebook group is called Reset Your Mindset, right?
Yeah, Reset Your Mindset with Emma Goldie. There's quite a few Reset Your Mindset. So yeah.
And then what's the best way or best website or way for the listener, if you're watching, to connect with you?
So I would say sign up for the Reset Your Mindset Challenge. Join in the Facebook group. I'm Emma Goldie Coach, as well as my business page on Facebook and Insta. I'm not too hot on Insta, but Facebook's a bit better right now. I'm trying to just focus on kind of one thing, building it, and then exponentially, shifting. It's really hard for me to focus on one thing. It's like, oh my God, I now want to build my course. Obviously I'm with you with the course, but I'm doing my one-to-one clients as well. And it's just like, slow down. I mean, some of the content obviously goes between the two, but yeah, keeping that focus is my thing, which I think is important. You need to be able to have that aligned, taking those aligned actions. Otherwise it's just exponential, and something has to be contained to be building the momentum. And then once it's contained, it's kind of got a life of its own. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry. So yeah, Emma Goldie coach, or Reset Your Mindset with Emma Goldie. I'd love to connect with you and see. Yeah, it's amazing, the results. It's a free group and the results have been awesome. So as well, Chris, thank you so much.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, Emma. And it's great to be on the journey with you.
Yeah, it's awesome to connect.
And that's a wrap for this episode of LMScast. Did you enjoy that episode? Tell your friends and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And I've got a gift for you over at LifterLMS.com/gift. Go to LifterLMS.com/gift. Keep learning, keep taking action, and I'll see you in the next episode.